Morning, Paul. How we doing?
Morning, guys. Not bad. How about you?
Not too bad, not too bad. How's the wee one? On the mend?
It was a rough night. I'm not gonna lie. I think I saw
Always the
it.
way.
I think I saw every single hour of last night
Oh,
at one point
jeez.
or the other. Like lots of getting up and putting a dummy back in, but I don't think I had more than a good like 50 minutes before I was okay. Get up again, do it again.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
God. Nightmare. Nightmare. Oh, dear. At least the link's working. That's always good. That's always my most irrational fear about
There
everything
you
is
go.
that there's
Now you're
going to be a
sat there, no
problem with
one's
the
joining
link.
in. Yeah, no, I'm exactly the same.
Yeah.
You saw going, I'm the only person here. What's going on?
This
Yeah.
is it. It's one of these things, when you've done like a million online meetings and it always works, but for some reason it's always at the back of my mind there'll be a problem. But good.
Well, I went through a phase during like the Euros when
Uh-huh.
it was on that I used to we had like a team we had like an internal team meeting every Friday morning. So
Yeah.
like the Friday before the final came on, I changed my name to It's Coming Home, and then about the week after I changed my name to Paolo Di Hanzio, and I was really worried I was going to sign and it was still going to be one of those two.
Morning, John. Morning, Heather. Can you hear us? Here's John back.
I have to admit, when it's quiet like this, I do always feel like I could just.
Yeah, we would notice.
How many people disconnect and join again?
It's 8 o'clock in the morning. You're lucky I can string a sentence together.
Yeah, we've got a couple of minutes.
Instant coffee, so I've got the strength to make the real thing.
I'm exactly the same. You just need that quick hit first thing, don't you?
Yeah.
Before you get going.
Absolutely.
I'll give it a couple of minutes before we. Can everyone hear us okay? Somebody's just messaged to say they've not got any sound for some reason, but
Yeah, no, here you're fine.
yeah, you're all right, Johnny. Yeah.
Yeah,
Heather,
you're absolutely fine.
Matthew,
Yeah, all good on my end.
perfect. Cool. Michael, yeah.
Morning, mate. Yeah, good. Good.
Ah, perfect. Good. Yeah, it was John that said it the problem. Can you hear us now, John?
How you doing, Paul?
Yeah, good, mate. You?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I wasn't until I had a little flutter on the Sunderland game last night.
I know. Yeah, it was apparently that offside was very close, to say the least. I haven't seen it, I have to admit.
Yeah, it looks onside, but these things happen.
Far too often, in fact.
Cool. Shall we get cracking then? We have a smaller group, but that's all right. Perfect. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
All good.
Perfect. Cool. Well, welcome. Thanks for joining us this morning. Obviously, we have delighted to have Paul here with us. So, yeah, I'm just going to give a very brief intro to We Are Tech for those that haven't been on this meetup previously. Run through the agenda quickly, and then I'll pass you over to Paul. So yeah, We Are Tech. Obviously, we're quite a new group based out here in the Northeast. I think this is our fourth meetup so far. Obviously, everything's been online. We really call ourselves tech agnostic in as much that we're keen to cover off various different topics to do with tech. What we're keen to do is really get our members involved, and if you've got any topics you'd like covered or anything you'd like to speak about, then we're very keen to kind of facilitate that. Again, we're not kind of bound by any time. So I think we've had a couple of lunchtime meetups, and this is our second breakfast meetup as well. So yeah, you know, in terms of when our speakers can actually speak best, we like to facilitate that, but also give everyone the chance to maybe be able to attend a meetup depending on your schedule. So yeah, that's a brief introduction to us. Obviously, we're going to hand across to Paul. I think it'll be about kind of half an hour, 35 minutes. Paul had said there, and he'll introduce the topic. Yeah, then we'll have kind of 10-15 minutes Q&A. It's quite a small group, so generally I'd say put comments in the box, but I think we can kind of manage it amongst ourselves to not kind of shout over each other. And then Paul's finished, I'll go through. We've got another meetup set up in a few weeks' time, so we'll run through that as well. So yeah, I'll stop sharing my screen. I'll pass across to you, Paul. I think you've got your slides there.
I certainly do. Bear with me 1
Perfect.
second. Can you all see the screen?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Grand. Okay, so hello everyone. As Martin just said, my name is Paul. I'm the head of technology at Corterium. We're a little startup which has currently got 5 devs in it. I've been in the game for a bit now, and what I've noticed is that there's a lot of emphasis and a lot of impact sort of assigned to COVID when it's whether it's to deal with recruiting, whether it's to deal with sort of retention, whether it's to deal with sort of the identity that a lot of companies try to put out. And this, from my perspective, has changed an absolute landslide since since COVID came, forced everything to change, and now people are coming out of the other side of it and going, okay, what did we learn and what should we keep? We're going through it right now. So my team are currently going through this concept of asking and talking about what should we be trying to keep that we've had to implement while we've been sort of, you know, working through a pandemic, and what should we maybe revert back to old type from. I thought it was interesting enough to put together for a little bit of a chat, so that's what I've done. I have to admit that when John approached me in the pub during the England game to say, would I do a talk for We Are Tech for this thing that he was starting up, he did definitely promise to send me a bacon sandwich, which is why I chose a breakfast one. So I'm still waiting on that, but you know,
it's on its way, Paul.
Yeah, I'm managing my coffee for now. As Martin said, there's quite a small group of us, so I'm really not fussed if you want to pipe up and shout up all the way through. There are sort of bits where I'm sort of hoping for some input. It's not so much like asking a deep question, it's more a case of like immediate reaction. What do you think? If you don't talk, then I will just pretend you have, because it's supposed to be bouncing back and forth. Cool. So let me jump straight in then. So the question that a lot of people are asked, and a question that I think that really boils down to a big problem in the tech world, in the tech sector, because it's such a hot industry to work in at the moment, is how do you get and how do you keep your good members of staff? So how do you sort of manage to get people in, and how get people in the door to work for you, and how do you actually keep them where you want them to be? So if you are a techie in the talk, or if you're, I know that a couple of you guys are sort of in the recruitment industry, what would it be? What would your sort of first thing be if you were going to go, what gets people through the door, or what would keep you where you are? This is the bit where I need some input. Anyone got anything they want to say?
There's quite a few reasons, I think, but I think flexibility, you know, working hours, that type of thing. Obviously, coming out of this work from home versus being office based is a massive thing for a lot of people. So I think those are a couple of quite big drivers I've noticed anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that, Martin. So the one that I expected people to say, which is why I put it in the first bit, is that pay them more. I think that there's an awful lot of scope and space in the industry where we have, there seems to be a bit of a culture and a bit of a pattern, and this isn't endemic to one company, it's endemic across the industry, I believe, where and it has happened to me before, if you get offered a job elsewhere for a few £1,000s more on your salary, and you go and tell your HR department that you think of leaving, they suddenly turn around and give you a big pay rise to match it. That in itself is a rant for another day, certainly, because there's a whole unpacking and unpicking that can go on there. But we can't really talk all that much about how you can influence or how you can change getting more money or getting less money. Something else that I am aware that people think of, or people are sometimes mention, is more responsibility or a fancy job title. I put the question mark because this one doesn't really ring true for me, but I do understand it. So if you're a developer and you're thinking of leaving, then a senior developer role might be something that would make you, all right, okay, I'll stay for a little bit. And obviously, conversely, if you're sort of a tester in a team and someone says you can have a role as a senior test manager somewhere else, you might be more likely to leave. And again, this is something we can't really influence, not very strongly anyway. You know, from my own perspective, as you get further up the ladder, the fancy of a job title that you've got, it really doesn't really make all that much of a difference anymore, because the work is there. Which then leaves me to the bit that I do think we can change, and the thing that we can influence, which is culture. So having a good culture in your sort of staff base and in your department makes a massive difference in terms of getting and keeping your good members of staff. If you've got a culture that fits and you think that, and the people that work there like the culture that you're in, again, speaking from experience, are a lot less likely to go, nope, I'm going to jump at the first opportunity I get. They are more likely to stay and they are more likely to join in the first instance. So thinking on that and thinking of sort of the culture, I had a sort of a quick blast through the past of all of the different LinkedIn messages I've been sent in the past, and had a quick sort of look through various job adverts that I had seen pre-COVID-19. And they had, all of them had various different bits and pieces on it, but they all had these kind of pre-COVID-19 culture perks, for want of a better word. And Martin, this touches exactly on what you were saying earlier. There's the concept that, you know, you can work remotely. Oh, brilliant. That sounds really good. Yeah, but it's only 1 day a week. And that's only subject to approval of your manager, because we really can't have you at home unless we know you're at home and we've already said you can do it. I mean, the flexibility goes, doesn't it? There's no, it's really at that point, that's more a case of, I've got a dentist appointment in 3 weeks, which I could take on my lunch break. So can I work from home that day? And that is no longer any kind of real sort of flexibility or remote working. We encourage collaboration. This is another one that someone had sort of sent me before. You know, we're encouraging you to do paired programming. We encourage you to work together, you know, disappear off your project to look at what other people are doing, have a look at different languages, learn while you're on the job, but without that kind of being written into your time. So you've got to actually still get your work done, which means that really you're either doing overtime to help someone else with their work, or you can, like, you know, paired programming is always a little bit dodgy. You can sometimes get away with saying, well, that was just like, you know, I'm so-and-so's supervisor, or I'm so-and-so's mentor, I need to help them. But if it's, I want to go and look at a different project, you're going to have to do it in your own time. And then, like, again, we go back to the flexibility thing. So remote working and flexibility, they were my biggest gotchas. They were my biggest things that I was always the most bothered about. And I actually did have this with a past employee saying that we offer flexibility, but that's subject to you being at a desk Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. So you had your start time could be at 8 or 9, and your end time could be at 5 or 6. And you could take an hour or 2 hours for your lunch, and that was the flexibility that they had put into the contract. And obviously, that is really not all that flexible. That might as well not be. You aren't really all that flexible at all. And it basically boils down to that a lot of the perks were they've always seemed, or before COVID, always seemed to me to be a lot less perky than they could be. And this is the bit that sort of rang with me, was that culture, it still felt very much like someone from the top was trying to prescribe a culture. Someone was trying to sort of go, this is what we want people to be doing. And that never really rings in. It never really sits in correctly with sort of, certainly in the dev teams that I've been in. And I imagine that a lot of people will feel very similar to me on that, in that you are, if something is being forced on you, then it's a lot harder to sort of be enthusiastic about it and to buy into it and to stay with it, compared to something that everyone agrees to give a go or to try with. A really good example of sort of the perks that are less perky, the one that I sort of always go with is, I'm pretty sure that it's Google in LA. They have set up effectively a little sort of campus. They've got beds, they've got a gym, they've got restaurants, they've got cinemas, but it's all in office. And it means that you can stay, you effectively don't need to go home. So why would you just stay here and continue to work forever? So they are trying to force a culture, and it does sound like quite a lot of people buy into it, but it sounds like it's very much again, a prescribed culture. So you have to want to be in that culture, and this is the culture that we are going to be driving, rather than, for me, that would be my idea of hell. You know, I would much rather just get into the office, do my job so I can go home and see my family, or at the moment, get into this office that I'm sat in do my work, and then leave and shut the door behind me, and then go back to my family. But they sort of have opted for a completely different culture to the one that I would be choosing from. And I suppose that if you're inclined to like those kind of perks, then Google probably is a great fit for you. So that was kind of a pre-COVID perks, and then everyone was sent to work remotely. It was like I still remember the date. It was 16th February for me. Oh, someone just popped up on the chat. I can't. Did that beep? Was that the beep? I can't.
There was a message from Tina earlier, but that was regarding the kind of first opening question. But I did hear the beep as well, Paul, so I'm not sure if it might take a minute to come through.
No worries. Yeah, I'm sorry, but the presentation mode's decided to overtake what my Zoom looks like. Let me see if I can shift my Zoom. No, actually, it might be because I'm screen sharing, because it's just got the little doofer. Oh, no, there you go. Chat. Sorry, Tina. Yeah, money, working conditions. You've got pretty much everything that I covered. So sorry that I missed that. So everyone sent to work remotely. That was what I still remember the date. It was 16th of February in 2020, and here we are in August 2021. I got sent home, and I was told by my boss that you're going to be working from home for a minimum of 6 weeks. And I still remember at the time thinking, 6 weeks? There's no way I'm going to be getting work. I'm going to work from home for 6 weeks and then be just sort of, okay, now I'm back into it. I was very much expecting it to be, okay, I'll have 2 weeks off, it'll die down and I'll be back to it. And here we are 18 months later and all working from home, more or less still. And what this kind of generated was it sort of exposed that a lot of companies needed to trust their employees a lot more, and the employees needed to kind of almost reciprocate and earn that trust, and to sort of go, yeah, I am a trustworthy person. You can rely on me to actually get on with my work. That was what a lot, and most of the companies that I've spoken to and dealt with did go down that route. I know we did. We kind of said, right, we need to get everybody set up remotely. We've actually hired quite a lot of the team while we've been remote. In fact, everyone now who's still there has been sort of hired during the remote times. So get them their equipment and trust them to just crack on with the work. And they, in turn, crack on with the work. And they sort of really appreciate that trust and that level of freedom that they now get. A couple of companies that I've spoken to, they went the other way. They went down the route of, okay, we can no longer see bums on seats. We can no longer see how often you're at your computer, at your desk working. We can't see what's going on. We can't do a quick, and I'm not saying people did this, but we can't do a quick walk around the office to quickly check no one's playing solitaire on their computer while they should be writing code. And they then went completely the other side of the trust issue and actually started, getting software installed on the computers to check how often the keyboards were being tapped. They were making sure that they were having sort of, half-hourly Slack bots to go, are you still working? What's going on if there was no movement or no activity in half an hour? And obviously that rang really bad for me, and I don't think that worked for anyone in the companies that I spoke to that had to go down that route. And we're all devs, we're all coders, so immediately you go, okay, this thing is going to flag up a warning if you're not active, and it's like going to be checking randomness. That's just gamifying it. You're going to get devs, and I know there were some that wrote little programs to go, okay, every 10 minutes, log on, type some random gibberish in, jump back off, and then it looked like you were active while they were sort of doing something else, having their lunch, whatever. So there was a big issue of trust, and that was something that needed to come in. Another thing that a lot of people had to deal with, and this was something that I think that in companies previous would have struggled with, was to migrate their meetings and their setups to be accessible by all. So something that I know that companies that I've worked for in the past have struggled with is to have that concept of, we'll have 80% of people in one room and The other 20% can dial in, and we'll make sure that they get as loud a voice as if they were in the room. And that is always a bit of a nightmare because, as I'm sure everyone here has experienced that before, you tend to have a lot more. You can read body language, you can see what's going on, you can sort of see someone's about to sit up to say something. All of those cues, they disappear, even with cameras on, even sat at a computer in like a Zoom meeting like this or on Teams, you lose some of that back-to-back, person-to-person kind of rapport. And obviously when you've got 80% in the room and 20% not, that's really, really sort of turned up. That's really kind of exaggerated. So we had to move things, and everyone that I'm aware of had to sort of go, right, well, meetings are going to have to be online now, and they're going to have to be a case of everyone dials in on their own computers. And I think that most, I mean, you know, we're all the tech sector, we kind of understand what needs to be done with that, and we are ahead of the curve with a lot of that kind of stuff. I still know of other sort of areas of the parent company that Cortirum works under they've still got the whole kind of, right, we're going to do conference calls, as in we'll actually dial into a conference number and do whatever, rather than using the power of the internet and the Teams and Zoom or whatever else needs to be done. I am trying to get them to move, but you know, stubborn lawyers. Yeah. So this kind of, and this was something that I didn't expect, and this is something that I was very aware of and had to nip in the bud quite quickly as one of the guys who was sort of in charge and looking after people, is that this kind of working remotely, I don't know if anyone else experienced this, it exposed a pattern of working later and more than you were sort of contractually obliged to, or than you were needed to. And I think that it was all down to convenience. And I know that I suffered for it as well, in that my computer is in the office, which is in the room next door to the lounge. So if I had a ping on my phone saying I've got a new email, or I even heard the computer sort of chime up, we use Skype for our chats, it chimed up with a Skype ping, but I would be going, I can just go next door. I can just go and look at what is there, I can go and see what it is, and I can think, right, I can handle this now, or I can sort of read what it is so I'm prepared in the morning. And more often than not, you'd go in, you'd handle it now, and then it's half an hour later and you've effectively done half an hour of what is effectively unpaid overtime, unless you manage your own time in terms of that flexibility. I sort of only really properly kind of twigged that it was happening once I jumped on to my computer, because this is the only one that I've got, to go on a bit of social media in the evening, and noticed that I was getting emails pinged through that new pull requests were being raised and that people were still doing work. I had to jump onto Skype and go, stop working, go away until the morning. This is not time for you to be working, because I know they've been working all day at that point. That was a bit surprising for me. I don't know, has anybody else experienced that? Did anyone feel like that's something that they experience, or they are aware that they fell into the trap of? I'm aware I've been talking for a bit and I want a bit of feedback.
Yeah, I think it's quite easy to, you know, if you haven't got the commute to work, you know, you get up, whatever your morning routine is, log on early, a couple of coffees, you know, very little steps. And, you know, before you know it, it's kind of mid-afternoon, you've possibly skipped lunch. So I think, you know, whilst remote working has benefits, offers more flexibility, I think certainly from my own experience, I'm lacking interaction. I'm lacking movement sometimes, and yeah, very much doing more hours than I would if I was in the office.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a 9-month-old at the minute, and she's not very well. So she's sort of not really sleeping very well. So it means that most days to get a nap, I've got to go for a quick walk around the estate. That's the only time I'm getting my steps in. Sometimes my steps are like 2,000 in a day, and it's really, really bad. So yeah, I absolutely empathise with that. Tina's put in the chat, very much so. Also, with the lack of having to travel, it doesn't seem to matter as much as it occurs. However, it doesn't mean it's right. That's absolutely spot on. I completely agree. You know, you and John touched on that as well with the commute stuff. We've almost got into a habit of going, okay, my day pre-COVID, my day started at 7 a.m. when I left the house to go to work. And okay, I wasn't actually in work until 8 o'clock, but I left the house at 7. So now that I'm not having to commute, or my commute is actually just to walk from the kitchen into the office, I can do that in, you know, in 10 seconds. So therefore, let's start at 7:30 rather than 8 o'clock. And when I finish, my day used to finish at 6 p.m. when I'd get home. Now it can finish a little bit earlier than that, but I actually end up doing more work. So you save time, but the company's gained more time out of you. And I think that's something you've got to, I certainly feel like I have to be very careful of, to keep on myself and also keep our staff members, just to avoid burnout, because burnout is still a real proper risk. And the fact that you're not commuting doesn't mean that you've got more time in the day to do more work. It should really mean you've got more time in the day to do more of your own stuff. So that was sort of, they were the things that we noticed quickly and the things that we had to deal with. So this next slide, this is entirely based on what we actually got on with. So what did we change? So what have we implemented? What have we taken from the COVID changes and gone, right, okay, now what are we going to do moving forward? So the first thing we've done is we've gone remote, like assume remote, and then the office is an option. So we are lucky in that because we're quite small, we've got the capacity to do this. I have sort of badgered the guys in the office to say that my guys won't be in very often, but they have still got to have a dedicated space, and that has eventually come to. So every member of staff in our place has got space to get to the office. I'm very lucky in that I've got this little sort of, it's not very big, but it's a sort of an office room where I can kind of shut the door, crack on with work, and go and leave it. There are people, and I've sort of, you know, when you have Zoom chats, you see them sat effectively about 3 yards from their bed and in their bedroom because they've got a desk in their room. Or if they're doing sort of a flat share or a house share, that they don't have that dedicated space, and that kind of really puts it onto them to work from home. And I didn't want that to be, you know, you have got to stay there. At the same time, I really have loved working from home. It makes it so much easier, because if I mean, I've told her not to shout while I'm doing the chat, but if my wife shouts and says I need help changing the nappy, I can just nip out and quickly help her, rather than her handling all of it on her own. So we've done that. We've given the staff the space to come to the office, but next to no obligation to. We decided to handle a big thing, and this was driven from the bottom, is that we decided that as of 8:45 a.m., so before 8:45 a.m. and after 5:15 p.m., so you've still got a little bit of give both sides of what you'd sort of expect to be your regular working day, that we won't have anything in terms of sort of what we would call noisy pings. So if you want to send an email, because everyone gets emails all the time anyway. But if you want to send a chat message in, like we use Skype, like I say, so if you want to Skype someone and you want to send them a message, if it's pre 8:45 or it's post 5:15, you don't do it. It's as simple as that. If it's important enough to be, you need to send it now, you can send it in an email. If it's super duper important, you can ring me, because that's kind of what my job is to be the person who gets rang at whatever time in the morning. But if it's outside of those hours, it either isn't important enough to be an email, in which case it can wait, or it shouldn't go in Skype anyway. And that's really helped, I think. It's really helped people not be dragged back into work as you're going through. We've gone full flexible. So we've tried to sort of say, and we've kind of encouraged to say, we want people to work when they feel comfortable. We still have meetings booked in that we expect you to attend. We're trying to sort of put them in places when everyone agrees would work for them. We do have some early birds. So we've got, I am one of them who starts early, and we've got some night owls who start quite late on, and we try and sort of accommodate meetings, or the majority of meetings, to allow for that. We've sort of going back to that kind of initial collaborative concept. We've actually recently had someone ask if they could do a bit of sort of training time? Is there any scope to do so? Because they felt like they were always chasing the next Jira ticket. They were always chasing the next bit of work that needed to be completed and didn't feel like they were ever having time to properly develop. So they sort of said, could we try this thing? So we're trying it for the next couple of months to say that every member of staff is allowed to book out half a day a week for their own personal development on company time. Obviously, that needs to be approved. We can't just sort of say, we'll do this. But enough of the guys in the team said, I'd really like to be able to do that. Would that be a possibility? And, you know, it was agreed that that would be a really good change in culture. So we went and said, we put a case forward, and we went to the directors and said, we really want this, and it will actually work out better for you to have more rounded, more interested, more sort of invested developers who want to actually work here because the culture fits them and because they get to have a voice in how it's run. And they said, absolutely, crack on with it. And now this is what we do. So now we get to have half a day a week for personal development on company time. They can't do origami. They can't sort of learn how to sort of do Olympic weightlifting. They can't do things that aren't relevant to their job or their role as a person. But if they wanted to go and learn about the cloud when they don't really do much cloud work, or if they want to go and learn Java when our backend is written in no JavaScript, that's okay. So long as they become better developers for it, or better in the development world for it, then that's a big thumbs up from everyone, really. And we decided to make all meetings and demos sort of virtual first. So if there are people in the office and if there are people working from home at the same time, which there will be moving forward, we've said that what we're going to do is make sure that everyone, even if there are enough people to warrant getting a meeting room, we're going to make sure that we don't just kind of put them as a side thought and go, right, okay, well, you guys are going to be considered after that. We're going to make sure that everyone jumps onto the computers. If it's not a demo that needs like a bit of actual sort of bouncing off each other, we're going to make sure that everyone still dials into a Skype call rather than just have one person dial in and everyone sort of shouts from the back or does whatever. So they feel like they're being a bit of a hindrance. Everyone dials in, chats like we are now, even though you might be sat, 5 yards away from someone, so you can make eye contact with them and you can sort of see what their body language is saying. All of this is stuff that we have implemented, we're going to implement, which has helped us really drive this culture change forward. So I promised that I would come up with something that wasn't just going to be me, anecdotally talking about my stuff. So I guess that this next slide hopefully covers a little bit of that. This is sort of advice for encouraging change. This is what I think matters and what I sort of believe worked for us and would work elsewhere. So if you have the power to influence this, I'd really recommend you trying it. If you feel like you aren't quite there yet in terms of like, I want to be able to have that power to facilitate the change, go and talk to someone that does and ask them to have a look at this kind of stuff. The first thing, and this is probably the most important bit of it, and this is kind of the bit that I think gets lost a lot when companies get bigger, is to ask staff what they really want. So what is it that your team actually values? What is it that they value in terms of what they're doing? If you ask a question, if you put out there and go, right, we're really interested in changing the culture, we really want to know what you guys want, and 45 members of staff say to you, I'm really bothered about flexibility. I'm tired of having to be sat at my desk Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. I want a 4-day working week. I want to be able to choose my own working hours a little bit more. And I want to be able to sort of push back a little bit if I'm getting meetings scheduled left, right, and center. And 3 people say, you know what, it'd be quite cool if we got an Xbox in the games room. Don't latch onto the Xbox in the games room and say, yeah, that's what we need to do. We need to, you've got to ask the staff what they want and listen to the majority of them. And then really importantly, you've got to try it. So it's not a case of saying, what would you like? I'd like more flexibility. You can't have that. We can't do that because it doesn't work. That is a conversation that I've had more than once with sort of higher ups in different companies to go, you've got a lot of people asking and driving for this culture change, this change right here. Yeah, but that would affect our bottom line is usually the answer, or it would affect our relationship with clients. And you sort of go, well, you can't say that the culture is prescribed to be what it is, but we want to change it without actually trying to change it. And this is a really important one. This is probably more important than asking what they want. You know, asking what they want is the first step. The most important bit is to try it. If it doesn't work, let's say you tried it. Let's go with flexibility one as the example. You know what? Fine, we'll do with flexibility. You can work whenever you want, so long as you cover the sort of the hours that are in your mandated contract. And suddenly you've got pretty much a 50-50 split. And now you've got half the team are starting work because they're clinically insane at 5 o'clock in the morning and they're finishing at 1 p.m. And then you've got the other half that are having a proper lie-in because they prefer working late on anyway. They're starting at noon and they're finishing at 8 p.m. So you've technically got coverage from 5 a.m. till 8 p.m., but you've only got overlap where the entire team's working between 12 and 1. And that's a very small window. And it doesn't work because you don't have the collaborative process anymore. You've got effectively two half teams working, and they're not really working in tandem, weren't working in sync anymore. And there's a problem. And you can report back that that's a problem. People are intelligent enough to understand that we can't handle that. So we're going to have to change it. If it does work, keep it. Or if it needs to be slightly modified, tweak it. You know, if giving them carte blanche doesn't quite work, say, we have got to be all of us online between 11 and 3. So then your early birds can start at 7 still, and your late risers can start at 11, so that everyone still has a 4-hour period where they can work collaboratively. And then they've got 4 hours before, 4 hours after to do their own bits, to crack on with their own code. I'm nearly done. But just to wrap up, the biggest thing, and this is kind of it's going to be big. I really think that over the next little bit of time, something that's really going to come in massively is the 4-day working week. I think that I'm on 4 days a week at the minute. Half our team are. The other half have opted for 5 days a week and for full time. I think this is going to be a real silver bullet going forward in terms of a culture change and something that is really going to get and keep your good developers. People are realizing after COVID that, and particularly with the remote working opportunities, that working as often and working as much as the Monday to Friday 9 to 5 has done in the past, it's not as productive as it could be, and it's also a real drain on your energy. I think I've taken to date so far this year, I've taken 3 days of holiday, and I don't feel worn out, I don't feel burnt out, and it's entirely because I get a day off a week anyway, or you know, I have 3-day weekends every single week, and it's lovely. If you've got the capacity to influence that and to start introducing that, I'd really recommend it. Or I'd start talking to your HR department about it. I'd start talking to your recruitment about this, to go, this is going to be the next big thing. That's my own opinion. That's me. My email address is there, paul.hans@corterium.com. Please do get in touch if you want to chat about anything. I'm always open to a conversation. Thank you very much for listening. And if you've got any questions, comments, heckling, then please chime up.
I think one thing, Paul, that is fundamental to what you've been talking about, and it's something that's not always done, is clarity. Clarity in what the expectations are, clarity in what the what people's responsibilities are in terms of how they work, where they work, how they interact with people, how they're going to build those relationships. What I found with a lot of places is with the coronavirus going on and us all being at home and everything sort of being an enforced change, there's become a lack of clarity. And in my experience, particularly engineers, software engineers, they like clarity and simplicity about how are we going to move forward. So a whole load of rules that are, well, we're sort of going to do this and sort of going to do that, doesn't work well. They like to know what the facts are and exactly how it should be. And I found that helps a great deal with people coping with the new ways of working.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and I think that I you know, being a code monkey myself, I absolutely agree that the clarity thing really makes a difference. It really does have a big impact. I do think that I think that that companies that are sort of set in their ways with kind of the culture they want to have can rely on the clarity a little bit too much sometimes, and can sort of go, this is the way we're doing it, and at least you know what's happening, rather than this is the way we're doing it, we'll try it this way, we'll try it this way, we'll try it this way, but we'll see where it fits and what goes on. But I absolutely agree. I think that being able to go, this is the expectation that you have, is a big deal. I think that I would go back to the sort of the point that I made, that needs to be, for me, for it to work, that needs to really be a sort of either a bottom up drive, or it needs to be kind of if you don't like this culture, then you don't join us, because that's the culture that we have here.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point about a lot to do with size. So I've got 70 people and 7 squads, and when it comes to recruitment and getting people into the organization, I now very much drive that recruitment within the squads, because the ways of working in each of the squads is quite different in terms of, you know, when they meet, when they work together, when they pair program, when they have the ceremonies, how their sprints are working. And that can have quite an impact on somebody's wish to join the organization. So in effect, we've got seven micro startups in my organization that all have different ways of working. And that's an interesting one to manage.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you imagine yourself, you know, having this chat and sort of going, right, okay, I like you, I think you're a good developer. Yeah, I'm going to hire you. And they go, okay, brilliant, thank you very much. And they start and it's nothing like what they expected, then that doesn't work for anyone. That then becomes a position where
absolutely
you've wasted time hiring them and they've wasted the time starting.
Being honest and open when it comes to recruiting people is so important. Selling a dream is never a good idea, because people realize the dream doesn't exist on day one.
Yeah, like the dream of having a bacon sarnie delivered. John,
yeah, well, you know.
On its way, Paul.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
Paul, just on, I don't know if you've had this, you know, in COVID times, but onboarding new starters, how do you as a business go about kind of sharing the business culture with that new starter? Because, you know, my view is I think it's harder to do so when it's remote. You know, you're not FaceTime, you know, well, face to face rather. So yeah, just any hints, tips, or experience on that?
Yeah, it is tricky. It's a lot harder to do. We've done it with a few devs now. The best advice I would give is make as many contact points as you possibly can. So we've introduced a buddy system. We've got mentors, we've got coaches, we've got all sorts of different people, and really all of them at the beginning fill the same role of, I'm just getting in touch to make sure you're okay. We have the, you know, what's going on? How's your day been? Can we chat to you about something else? And to make sure that they get included very quickly. So we've got a couple of kind of social chats that people have, and we, you know, it usually falls to me, or it might fall to one of the HR lot to go, what do you like? Is there anything that you're into? Here's a list of all of the stuff that we have. We've got like a tennis social chat, we've got a board games, we've got a Last of Us, we've got people who like just going to the pub and having a drink, we've got a football, we've got a five-a-side one. Like, what WhatsApp groups, what chats do you want to be added to, so that you can start talking to people, and so that you can start making those connections and getting part of that culture? That makes a big difference, to have that immediately started and to have those points of contact. And then I think that particularly at the moment, with it being remote, having sort of, and this is something that you might not particularly have all that much power, is to, if you're in a position of seniority to those people, that you have to lead the way with the culture. So you have to lead the way by going, until it's 8:45 a.m. I am not going to bother you on Skype. Even if I'm working away and something's popped up, I can wait, because you have to wait. You know, when it gets to, like, because I start early, I usually try and clock off at about 4 o'clock so I can take my son Freddie out for a bit of a scooter around the estate or to a park or somewhere like that. So if I've got to get on with stuff, then I will. But when it gets to 4 o'clock, I go, right, I'm disappearing, I've done my day. And that intrinsically, and just sort of without saying it, guides the culture to one of, we're more bothered about you getting on with your lives outside of work than becoming drones at work here all the time, and that don't actually do anything apart from jump back in and jump back on. Yesterday, I had someone get in touch. One of the juniors got in touch and said, "Can you give me a hand with this? I'm a bit fuzzy because I've got a bit of a migraine today." I rang him up and sort of went, "Why are you working if you've got a migraine today? You know, that isn't any good for me, because your work won't be as good, and it's no good for you because you'll probably not get over it. Go to bed." And, you know, like, I didn't actually take him to bed, but I effectively sent one of my members of staff to bed yesterday just to go and get some sleep, and I'll talk to you in the morning. But I have to do that as well. So I've done that. When I got my first COVID jab, I was floored and I felt disgustingly ill. And I said, I'm not working today. I can't brave it, even though I'm downstairs in my own office. And I went back to bed. And sort of, you know, being the culture you want to see is a very important part of it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point there, Paul. It's just kind of, I think working from home's given us an expectation of kind of constant availability, you know. And I think if you're sick, then, you know, if you could go into the office, you know, make the commute to the office, you know, why is it different that you can actually sit in your home office and work? You know, I think that's a really good point, and just managing that. And obviously, I can see in your team you're trying to kind of filter that down into your team, you know, and manage that expectation. So I think that's really important. Something that's maybe overlooked as well, because you've probably got a lot of people sitting there that really aren't 100%, but are kind of online anyway. Whereas it'd be better maybe taking the day off and then coming back fresh the next again, day more productive. But they kind of feel obliged because, well, we work from home, aren't we?
Yeah, it's a lot easier to go, I'll just crack on for a few hours today because I'm already technically in the office. Then I've got to travel for an hour to get to work. I'm really not feeling that. It's something you've got to keep an eye on, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, it sounds like that might be it. I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll hand back over to you, Martin.
Cool, thanks, Paul. So just a quick wrap up. Thanks very much for that, Paul. Really interesting discussion. I think some good points. And a lot of stuff to kind of think about moving forward. It'll be interesting to see how things develop, certainly, as we hopefully pull out of COVID a bit and see what companies kind of stick to changes and which ones don't. So yeah, but thanks again for joining us. Just a quick note, we do have the recording of the meetup will go on the YouTube channel, so if you want to sign up for that, so everything that we do will go up on that. Again, any ideas for topics or speakers, do feel free to get in touch. Our next event, a couple of weeks time on the 9th, which is Lavina Ramchandani, who will be talking on data science model testing, which will be an interesting one, I think. So quite looking forward to that. Again, big thanks to Paul, thanks to Sagaz as well for sponsoring the meetup, and we'll hope to see you all again soon, and have a great Wednesday.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Paul, for that.
Thanks very much.
No problem, my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, Paul.
Good day now.
Day.
Bacon roll on the way now, Paul. Greg's delivery.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm going around John's house and he's making me not careful.
Get your wallet out, John. Come on.
I'll buy you a pint next time.
Yeah. No worries.
Cheers, everyone.
Go.
Right,
Thanks, everyone.
have a nice day.